Okay, well, we might get started. So, welcome everyone. I'm recording this webinar so we can share it with others who haven't been able to make it on the call. But just firstly, I'd like to say welcome. We know that your time is valuable and everyone's busy, so thanks for taking the time out. This is going to be a very quick session. We want to limit it to around about 20 minutes, plus give you time to have some Q&A and ask questions. As I've said, everyone is on mute at the moment, but more than happy to unmute you and have a discussion about your particular business, your particular situation, and how it might link into the funding that's available that John and I will take you through. So just a very quick introduction, myself and John. I'll introduce myself quickly, and then John, I might ask you to introduce yourself. I'm the director of a business coaching and consulting firm called 9 Pillars. Work with established businesses to help them manage their growth and put in place the foundations for future growth. And I've worked with quite a few businesses under this program. I work with a lot of businesses in general, but I've been fortunate enough to know John for quite a few years, and we've worked together on some common clients under this entrepreneurs program. John, I'll just ask you to maybe introduce yourself.
Thanks, Anil. Good morning, everyone. John Mills. I'm a business advisor with the Oz Industry Entrepreneurs Program. That's the federal government working with small to medium Australian manufacturing firms looking at opportunities to help them grow their revenue and improve their business.
Excellent. Thanks, John. Okay, so just a very quick outline of today's session. It's just an information session, obviously, to explain the funding that's available under the Entrepreneurs Program. I know there are different sorts of grants and funding that's available out there, but a lot of them are quite restrictive to to R&D or to specifically exporting businesses, and they can be quite onerous, I suppose, to apply for and to be accepted. So we'll take you through the Entrepreneurs Program, which is set up quite differently. It's very easy to access, especially with John's support. We'll obviously go through the details of the support that it covers, what you can use the funding for, a few quick examples of clients that both John and I have worked with, and also just explain the application process and what the next steps are. Okay. So John, are you happy to go through most of this? Because just letting you know that the way this program works, John is really the one who takes the lead in this program and is the link between the program and the business. Where someone like myself would come in is, or other consultants and other advisors, is to help implement some of the recommendations that come out of the initial business review that John would do. And definitely there's no obligation to use someone like myself. I'm just here to help share the knowledge or share the opportunity for this sort of funding. But John, I might hand over to you if that's okay. Take us through a bit of the outline of the program and what it covers.
Thanks, Anil. Yes, everyone. I think the feedback we get from people who've engaged with the Entrepreneurs Program is that it is particularly user-friendly, and it was designed to be suitable for small to medium firms, because we know the people running those businesses and involved in them their time is critical, their time is short, and the last thing you want to be doing is spending hours filling in application forms and then waiting to hear if you've been accepted and then taking a line on the queue. It's a nice prompt focused diagnostic process. So basically I front up and do a diagnostic with you in the business. We look at the 3 key areas that are of relevance, which is strategy, what sort of direction and goals do you have for the business? Operationally, how's it working on a day-to-day sense? And financially, is it giving you the sort of returns and rewards that you deserve for the hard work you're putting in? So strategy, operations and financials to try and build a nice strong triangle to run the business with. And we then basically do a discussion around what are the opportunities to improve. I think there's another slide next, Anil, which talks a little bit about the process.
That's right. So So just as is shown on the slide here, you know, it's obviously been running for quite a few years. It used to be called, or slightly different program, but generally speaking, it was formerly known as the Enterprise Connect program. So you may have heard of that in the past. There's been lots of businesses run through that program. So as John has just alluded to, it is focused on business management, how to improve business practices, become more competitive, facilitate growth. And the first step, as John mentioned, is a comprehensive, confidential business review or diagnostic of the business. And John, as part of that, there's some quite, some excellent industry benchmarking reporting as well, isn't there?
It is. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the BAS statements. You either do monthly or quarterly, depending on how big your business is. That data goes to the Bureau of Statistics and then gets analysed and turned into industry sector reports. They're particularly valuable because they're going to tell you what's the trends are that are happening in your sector. And the nice thing about it is it's not a survey. It's not someone ringing up an owner saying, do you think business is improving or declining or getting easier or getting tougher? It's real numbers that your accountants are reporting back to the Bureau of Statistics every month, which give a very, very real impression, not just of top line, but it even describes the cost structure in that sector. It's describing how profitable it is, and it's giving you some really important key metrics such as revenue per employee. How many people, for example, do you need to generate $1 million in your business, and what sort of profit are those businesses generating? And now this, of course, is at a sector level. So if you're a sheet metal manufacturer or a plastic moulding company or a timber furniture manufacturer, you're all reporting into different sectors, but then the aggregated data for that sector from large to small companies is then put together, and it gives a very useful indicator of what is actually happening out there in manufacturing land.
Yeah, and that's so that's part of the report that after the diagnostic, John provides quite a comprehensive report, and that includes these benchmarking statistics, and obviously that's a fantastic way to identify areas that whether the business is performing better than the industry average, or that there's room for improvements. And in addition to that, there's John makes recommendations, specific recommendations, through discussion with the business owners and the business managers, and understanding what their priorities are, to come up with recommendations. And then the next step after that is that's when the funding kicks in, is when if you want to implement any of these recommendations, and we'll run through some of the examples of those. If you want to implement any of those recommendations, then there's $20,000, up to $20,000 of matched funding. So matched funding means that, let's say there's a recommendation to implement lean manufacturing. You would engage with a consultant to help you through that process. Let's say that consultant's fee for that is $10,000. You would get $5,000 of that back through this program. So any questions so far? Just feel free, if you've got any questions, just enter it into your chat box. We will have a separate question time at the end, but feel free, if there's any questions along the way, just pop it into your chat box, and we'll respond to that, or even unmute you and have a chat about it. Okay, so as John mentioned, there's some different parts of the business. John, you obviously use this balanced scorecard approach.
Yes, Anil, I find that very comprehensive in terms of giving a balanced picture. Lots of firms are often concerned or wanting to improve the financial performance of the business, but the financials, as we know, are in fact the effect of doing good things in the other three boxes. Having, growing customer base, a satisfied customer base, and working with profitable customers is an important factor. Popping over the other side of the box, the processes that you have in the business, are they slow or cumbersome or generating lots of paper or hard to navigate? Trying to come up with and streamline some of your business processes through lean or through digital workflow, which is a fantastic opportunity now to start doing things on the screen rather than with pen and paper. So helping firms to actually understand what that could look like in the future. And obviously then the thing that makes every business tick is, in fact, it's wonderful people. So, in other words, how are you looking at the current team you have? How are you going to encourage them to grow and learn new skills and keep pace with a growing and changing business? Or maybe even add in some additional skills or capabilities that you're looking to add in the future. And of course, the model works. We can dive in and spend as much time as each firm needs in each of the boxes: customer, financial, process, and people. But the circle in the middle is one that's often missed, which is, in fact, what is your vision? What's your strategy? What are you trying to achieve as the business? Because by defining your strategy and your goals clearly, it'll give you some clues as to what sort of customers you need to be working with, what sort of capabilities you need to have, and perhaps even by looking at the sector, improving your performance in that sector, or perhaps even moving into a more attractive sector.
And John, can you just, this is obviously focused, we're talking to manufacturing businesses about this. Can you just give us a bit of an insight into your background? Because now I haven't had a practical or a hands-on experience in the operational side of manufacturing businesses. I come from I'm an accountant by training. I come from business management side. But John, you're obviously a manufacturing specialist, and can bring all of that past experience to the table as well. You're not just a theoretical consultant.
Well, Neil, one of the good things I think the Department of Industry did when they kicked off the program, they realised having public servants telling small to medium business owners how to be more efficient wasn't exactly going to be on the same wavelength. So, fortunately, all of the business advisors in the program come from industry. I've been in operations. My background is I've done a fitting and machining apprenticeship. I've got an engineering degree from New South Wales Uni, and having got to a certain level in my engineering career, I realised that I needed to understand the financial aspects of business, not to be an accountant, Neil, but to at least know what good numbers needed to look like to justify, for example, capital investment in machinery. So I do try and bring a balanced understanding of the operational aspect of firms, as well as the need to achieve a sound financial.
And
we've got a good question here from Josh this morning. I just thought we might dive into that for a moment, Neil.
What was that, sorry?
There's a question there from Josh on the chat.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought I might answer that for you, Josh. Lots of firms come to us saying, I'd like a government grant, and we almost have to work back and say, what for? Hence, that's what the diagnostic is. It's to try and get focused and clear on what sort of things you're looking to do in the next 12 to 18 months. The program doesn't fund capital spend, so it's basically about assistance and advice to actually help you take the next step. The one exception to that is software. Because of the important role that software plays, particularly in helping businesses become more digital, we are now funding the actual purchase price of a piece of software up to $40,000, being 20 matched, or the license fees for cloud-based software up to 12 months. So you can upgrade your accounting system, your ERP system, your CRM system, your CAD software using the matched funding as an outcome of the business review, but you can't use it to go and buy, say, a new lathe or a new piece of manufacturing equipment.
Yeah. But John, on that, on the equipment side of things, training associated with new equipment would be covered. Is that generally, or?
Certainly, Neil. Selecting the equipment in the first place, getting consulting advice to say what is the right machine for the job, if it's a machine, for example, working out how you're going to put that piece of machinery in your factory and organise the material flow and the workflow around it, writing operational procedures, training your staff, doing the safety diagnostics. Any of that sort of work, for example, is eligible because it's a consulting piece to go with a manufacturing upgrade. But the actual cost of the machine, no. Any consulting support to implement, yes.
Okay, great. So John, it's interesting. I didn't see Josh's. Still can't see Josh's question come up here. So just let me know if there's anything else. I'm not sure what.
Might just be on my screen, Neil. That's good.
All right, so I'll move on just to the next one quickly. Just shows you some of the things that the funding can be used for. As John's already alluded to, things like strategic planning, developing sales and marketing plans, identifying new marketing opportunities, implementing new customer service engagement or CRM software. So as you can see, it's a whole range of things from customer service, marketing, strategic reviews, production improvements, a whole range of things there, but specifically related to getting advice and support from consultants or others or trainers to help implement the recommendations that you would come up with, John.
That's right, Neil. I think you can almost see the balanced scorecard in those that list of recommendations, and that's typically where most reports are going to have perhaps even a recommendation or two in a couple of the boxes, depending on what it is that their vision and the strategy is sort of outlining they need to do in the next year or so. The business process is a nice streamlined project. From the time you apply to the time you've actually completed the diagnostic with me and I've got a report back to you, it's about 8 weeks. It's not like 8 months, it's 8 weeks. So from start to finish, you can be at the point of having a document in front of you which you as the business owner has contributed to and your staff, which then reflects the actual things you're wanting to do in the next 12 to 18 months. And then at the end of that, then you go and apply for the match funding and you engage some consulting help on the different projects. And then you've got 12 months in which to implement those activities and claim back your rebate.
Yeah. And I think just since the start of the year as well, they've even made it even simpler to access or apply for that funding after you've done the diagnostic. So if anything, it's becoming easier to the process is becoming easier. Is that fair to say, John?
We've tried to practice what we preach, Neil, and move it to an online model. So it does mean you can access and apply for a grant at 9 o'clock at night if you wish to, if that's where you got to in your working day. And it really does make it user friendly for busy people in business.
Yeah. Okay, so just want to go through a few quick examples of businesses that both John and I have worked with. So Civic here on the screen is a manufacturer of, as you can see in their logo there, public use products. So things like water fountains, fuel stations, bike lockers. So these are things that councils generally would purchase and install in public areas. And now I worked with the Civic Group prior to John working with them. But John is, with your experience with them, I think you did an analysis and they and you all agree that lean manufacturing was an area that would really benefit their business and that they were keen to look at. So part of that review process that you undertook identified that or confirmed that, and they were able to then engage with a lean consultant and really streamline and update the way that they were doing things in their factory.
That's true, Neil. I was just speaking to one of the family. It's a family business, second generation running it now. And Rowena was telling me that their sales are up 40% in 12 months. And one of the reasons behind that was they had great products. They were getting a lot of market traction, but they had a bit of a production bottleneck. Yep. And certainly the lean has been very helpful in helping them clear that production bottleneck. And now their sales and marketing now is not being constrained by the factory's capacity.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic example that, a lot of businesses that we speak with either have constraints around finding the right staff to be able to do the work, or there's production bottlenecks. There's plenty of demand there from customers and plenty of opportunity. But if you can't get the product out, then it really restricts the rest of the business. Another one that I've been working with recently is a company called Sea Air Installations. They manufacture and install air conditioning ducting, this was actually a referral from John to myself, and I've helped them implement some of the recommendations, such as reviewing a move to a new factory, the financial considerations and strategic considerations around that. So glad to see that they've now moved to a larger premises. They've implemented new machinery, new technology. They've also improved the way that they are reviewing their job profitability. They have more engagement with the next generation of family members. Once again, it's a family business, and all of that's been through the initial recommendations and review that John made with them.
I want to emphasise, though, that the recommendations in the report is not sort of me coming in and telling the firm, here's what I think you should do. It's a very, very interactive process, which is about exploring, in what areas are you performing well, and where do you think the the difficulties, the constraints, or the things that are holding you back are. So it's really about trying to address a constraint, and then that's where we sort of see these step changes in performance. This is an example of a firm that's quite common, where you have a technically or a trade qualified or a technical person running the business, but then they don't perhaps have the opportunity to have the financial skill set to analyse a significant spend, such as moving to a new location. That involves higher rent, relocation costs, and you really need to have a financial ability to model what the business would be with a different set of overhead costs. And that's where people like Neil and Nine Pillars can bring that accounting expertise to then show, here's the sort of minimum turnover per month you need to break even in order to be for this to be a success for you. And then the businesses then can concentrate on, yes, we know that we can generate $200,000 worth of sales a month or whatever it might be, in order to make the new venue or the new piece of equipment financially justified.
And the last example is a client in a business that I'm currently working with. Another referral from not quite a referral, but I know you normally give a few names of a few consultants that businesses can speak to, and I was lucky enough, I suppose, to start working with Out There Media, a printing business based in Riverwood. As you can see, they do car signage, they do a lot of corporate and sporting event fit outs. So, once again, a business that it's a family business once again, and they had grown to a stage where they really need to start implementing better procedures, such as proper policies and procedures with their staff, looking at organisational structures for the future. So there are a few things that they're engaging with a HR consultant. So I'm not the only one working with them on this, the recommendations out of John's assessment. They've engaged with the HR consultant to help them identify the best roles in their organisation moving forwards, how to better manage their team. I'm helping them with a sales and marketing plan to continue to grow, and obviously just overall planning and accountability to make sure that they are that all of the family members are on the same page and committed to putting in place the steps, not just to get things done day to day, but moving forwards and making sure they're focused on the future and allocating the time for that as well.
That's a good point, Anil. I think I'd like to emphasise the fact that the choice of the consultant that you want to work with, having received your action plan, a diagnostic piece, is entirely up to you, the firm. There's no list of approved government consultants. There's no tie-in or obligation then to work with your preferred accountant or whatever it might be. Who you work with is up to you. And sometimes people say, can you suggest someone who's got some skills in the area of digital marketing or lean or financial management or business coaching? Happy to provide some names, but I'll always give you 2 or 3 to pick from. And at the end of the day, it's up to you then to go and talk to them and find someone that you're on the same wavelength with and you feel comfortable working with. Because ultimately, it's your money, it's your business. And this is the federal government then just trying to create some incentive for you to take that next step and work on something that will help you grow your business.
Excellent. So just lastly, next steps. John, can you just explain if someone wants to go ahead with the initial evaluation or business evaluation review process? What's involved there?
Basically, the diagnostic, Anil, covers off those key 4 points. So we're sort of understanding where the business is now. So what's the current situation? You provide me with some financial data and other operational info, and we have a little look at how the business is working today. We then think about what would the business look like in 2 years' time? What would you like to be reporting as a revenue number, or what sort of customers would you like to have in your customer base, or what sort of people would you want to have in your factory or in your office as part of the business? So that's sort of creating that vision. That's not quite set in concrete at that stage, but it really is the goal or the target you're shooting for. And then we try and create then the action plan, the ladder or the steps that are going to take you from where you are today to perhaps being, 40% bigger as it was in Civic's case. And then if you're getting 40% bigger, well, what does that mean for your factory, your people and your business processes and systems? So that's the plan. And then the last one is then And is there any help to implement that? Yes, there is. That's where the $20,000 worth of match funding over the next 12 months then can be used to engage some consulting support or assistance to help you get there.
But that initial diagnostic process is it's absolutely free and obligation free as well. Any recommendations that John makes in conjunction with the business, there's no obligation to actually implement that.
Yep.
So to actually apply and get started with that, John, is there an online application? Do they just let you know and you look after all of that? Have a conversation with them, organise a meeting. What's required from the business's side in terms of time and effort?
Sure. It's the application process would probably take 10 minutes. You can, if you contact Neil or myself by email, we'll send you the link. Otherwise, it's business.gov.au, and you're looking for the business evaluation service. And then that'll take you then through to an application form, and it will just take you through the obvious things: name, address, phone number, and how long you've been in business. Just to cover off some of the eligibility criteria, the minimum or the entry point is $1.5 million in turnover, and the upper limit is $100 million. So it's a small to medium program, and most of our clients are $5 million or less.
Yeah. Okay, so that's everything that we wanted to cover off. Any questions? Happy to open it up. Happy to unmute any of you, or you can unmute yourself actually, because there's only a few of us on the call, but so feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. If not, what we will do is we will send around the link to that application, and also I'll send around John's details as well. So Michael's just unmuted himself. G'day, Michael. How are you?
Good, thanks, Anil. You able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Quick question for either yourself or John. From a cash flow and a budgeting point of view, how much does the client company need to fund? There is a co-contribution grant there available, but when does it become available and how does it become available? So what does the client need to budget for in this whole process from start to finish?
Good question, Michael. My understanding, John, is that basically there's a 12-month program. Those recommendations need to be implemented within 12 months. Whenever actually, John, if you can clarify, because I know it's changed. Prior to the start of this year, it was project-based. So every time you finished one of the projects that had been approved within the program, you would apply for that 50% rebate to come back, and then that would be processed fairly quickly. What's the new process, John?
We've basically simplified it rather than having multiple claims against different projects. It might not be quite as cash flow friendly on that one, Michael, but the way it works is once the work is completed and you've paid the consultants or the consultant or consultants, you might have engaged 3 different people to do 3 different projects. When it's all finished and you're happy with the work and you've paid the bill, then you go about making your claim. So it's retrospective in that you need to be able to fund the $40,000 or whatever amount up to that to actually get the work done, and then it's received as a rebate. There's only one funding application opportunity, and there's only one claim process, and you can finish the project within 3 months and get paid, or you've got up to 12 months in which to complete the work and get paid.
Does that answer that, Michael?
Yes, it does. That's good. I suppose I've just got one other question in relation to that. Is there any sort of success criteria? So completing the project, I suppose that can be fairly easily determined, but are there any other criteria that need to be satisfied before that grant money will be released?
Michael, there's no audit or check at the end. The thinking is that the business is spending their money and you're the customer, so it's important that you're happy with the work the consultant's done. And in other words, you wouldn't be paying them or continuing the project if you weren't happy. We don't come in then and do a post-audit or anything like that. We do come back to the end, though, and ask you to give us an update on how the business is tracking as it's going, just to really get a sense of, is it making a difference and is it helping?
Yeah,
right.
And I think the only potential criteria is that the invoices that have been paid need to match, or the service that have been provided by the consultants need to align with one of the recommendations, at least in that initial report. John, is that still the case?
Yes, basically the funding application now, I just recommend clients to list anything or everything that they're thinking about doing in the next 12 months, potentially involving consulting help. And I often find that business coaching option in there really gives you the flexibility of doing literally anything. Coaching quickly can easily become consulting, and consulting can easily be coaching, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And I suppose business coaching, that said though, there are obviously recommendations, such as with Out There Media. They've engaged with a HR and recruitment specialist company to help them with some of those recommendations. But you're right, you can apply for a range of projects and assistance. If you apply for business coaching, then the business coach could potentially then bring in other consultants to help implement any of those sorts of projects. So it's pretty broad. It's fairly easy to meet the criteria and expectations of the program. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Sorry, I've got this is definitely my final question.
Keep going.
So you undertake, the company undertakes work that aligns with the recommendations, and so long as the invoices that are submitted for claim, the services on those invoices match the recommendations, then they're likely to get paid. Given there's a 12-month time frame, how is the beginning and the end of that time frame determined? So what is officially the start and what is officially the end?
Sure. Imagine we're just coming up to the end of May at the moment, for example. Imagine I deliver a business review action plan to you at the end of May. That has a date on it. So from the date that's on that report, let's imagine it's going to be the 30th of the 5th, which is today's date. You technically have a 12-month window in which to apply for funding. So you've got until May 2020 to actually think about, decide, choose, plan what you're going to do. You could wait as late as 2020 and then make a funding application. And then the funding application is then from that date has a 12-month period in which to complete. So there's a 12-month window to apply following the business review. And then the project, once applied and approved, needs to be completed in 12 months. So you could potentially spend almost 2 years after the original diagnostic piece. We encourage you to try and get cracking on it early, because the sooner you make the improvements, the sooner you get the benefit. But technically, you could actually string it out for as long as nearly a 2-year period from the date of the action plan.
And in terms of applying for the funding, what many businesses are doing now are, they're basically applying for everything up to the $40,000. Projects worth $40,000, there's no obligation then to actually spend $40,000 over the next, once that funding's approved, which it basically is, gets rubber stamped, and then they may decide over that, the 12 months of actually implementing the improvements, they might just think, well, they might decide that anyone spend $5,000 towards certain consultants' fees, and that's it. But I suppose the safe thing to do is to apply for the full $40,000. And then you've got that flexibility to actually implement the recommendations up to that level, but there's no obligation to.
And the nice thing is the flexibility in there, Michael, is you might start a sales and marketing project and go, oh, that was really easy. I've upgraded the website and that's now happening. Now I've got the issue with my software or my people. You might have notionally thought you're going to spend $10,000 on 4 different projects. You might find one that could be completed in 5. The other one needs to increase to 25. So you've got that total flexibility now in the new program, which, as Neil pointed out before, it was a little more defined before, whereas now it's basically you've got a $40,000 project funding envelope, as long as it's something that's in the action plan and has consulting support to make it happen.
Very
All right,
good.
so I know
Thanks,
we're
guys.
just, I don't want to keep people too long. So if there's any other questions from either Greg or Josh, I'm happy to field those, or definitely happy to take it offline after this webinar is over. So Greg or Josh or anyone else that's on the call, if you have any questions, let us know.
And we
Otherwise,
encourage you to contact our happy clients. They're all good reference clients for the program, and Neil, and they'll tell you what they got out of it.
yeah, that's right. And yeah, it's a very successful program. You know, it's surprising. You know, people think, okay, I actually had one person when I sent this information out to a few of my contacts. Someone said, "Oh, there's always a catch. What's the catch?" You know.
It's free.
Yeah.
We've certainly changed the consulting model. It's free, and we give you money at the end.
But as you said, John, you know, the business still needs to front up with the cash to implement those projects, and then they get that back, or half of it back. All right, so just like to thank you all for attending. I know everyone's busy, so definitely get in touch with myself or John if you'd like to find out more, if you'd like to go through the process. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of the week. Speak soon. And thanks, John.
Bye.
We'll speak soon.